Listen carefully. Today I will tell you something that many people spend their entire lives searching for, but never find. Something that can completely change your way of seeing money, success, and freedom. And no, this is not that usual story about saving every penny and living in fear of spending. No. Today I will reveal to you the financial wisdom that my Jewish ancestors used for generations. Wise men and women who knew how to turn almost nothing into true wealth. When I was young, I thought that being poor simply meant not having enough money. I saw my parents counting every penny every month and the people around me saving on everything: food, clothes, vacations, and especially on themselves. And I lived that way too. I saved. I dreamed. I dreamed of a house, security, never having to feel the weight of an empty wallet. Do you know what I discovered years later? That saving money this way is a trap, an illusion of security that turns people into eternal slaves to their bank account numbers. I saw this around me. People saved their whole lives but remained poor. They postponed dreams, waited for the right moment, saved every real, and in the end, nothing changed. They kept fearing tomorrow. And then I started to wonder why some people, even with a small income, become rich, successful, and respected, while others, with the same money and effort, remain poor. The answer was simple and surprisingly profound. Money itself is neither the goal nor the path to wealth. Poverty begins in the mind. I was born into a Jewish family. My parents were not wealthy, but they knew how to make money work for them. They understood an important law of life. Money is a tool, not an end in itself. They learned to invest, to create opportunities, to think differently, and they always repeated a phrase that truly marked me when I heard it for the first time. Son, if you want to be rich, don't accumulate money. Learn to use it wisely. At that moment I thought, how absurd. How can you not save money? But life made me understand the depth of these words. I saw people who saved their entire lives and died poor. And I saw people who invested every real they had, earning with intelligence. And years later, they experienced a freedom I could only dream of back then. And now I will share with you the principles that changed my life and the lives of many around me. Simple, straightforward, and powerful principles. And if you master them, you will never be poor again. Even if your income is small. Even if your wallet is empty right now. I know what you're thinking. Everything sounds great, but how does it work in practice? That's exactly what I will talk about now. Today you will learn to think differently, to manage money so that it works for you and not the other way around, and to turn even a small income into the foundation of your wealth and freedom. But there is one condition. You need to set aside your fears and old beliefs about money. Forget everything you've been taught. Save first. Don't spend. Avoid risks. Live modestly. Today I will reveal a truth that seems almost magical, but is ancient and proven by generations. And if you watch until the end, you will understand how to stop fearing poverty and become someone who controls their own money, not the other way around. Now that we know that saving the wrong way is a dead end, it's time to share what really works. I want to share with you the principles I have learned over the years, observing people, studying, listening to mentors, and most importantly, making my own mistakes. The first principle is simple but is ignored by almost everyone. Invest in knowledge. Truly wealthy people do not hoard money. They make money work for them. When I was young, I earned little and had almost nothing left. I saw colleagues afraid to spend a penny more on education, courses, or books. And do you know what happened? They remained the same. Years later, I decided to invest in myself. I started reading books about business, economics, and financial education. I attended seminars, went to lectures, and talked to people who were already where I wanted to be. Every real invested in this returned multiplied. Investing in knowledge is the only investment that never loses value. In Jewish tradition, there is the principle of Talmud Torah, the pursuit of knowledge as the highest priority. From an early age, Jewish children are taught to value education above all, because knowledge is the only asset that no one can take away from you. In my early 20s, I took a small amount of money I had saved and invested in financial education. I could have left it in the account or spent it on entertainment. But that knowledge allowed me to create my first passive income source. The money started to come in on its own, without constant effort. And then I realized, investing intelligently is not just about buying assets, it's about acquiring the ability to create them. The second principle is equally powerful. Do not be afraid to take risks, but do so wisely. Many people think investing is a game of luck. It is not. The real risk is investing blindly, without understanding anything. Wise people analyze, evaluate, plan. And that is how I did it. I started with small investments, testing, learning, and gradually increasing. The Talmud teaches an ancient wisdom about diversification. Divide your money into 3 parts, 1/3 in land, 1/3 in business, 1/3 always available. Do not put everything in the same place. Spread out, protect, expand. I remember my first experience with a small business. I rented a tiny space with almost no money and started selling products I knew. The first week was a failure, but I did not give up. I studied the market, learned from competitors, and implemented new ideas. In a month, my income tripled. Money prospers with movement and intelligence, not with fear. I also met a Brazilian named Daniel who experienced something similar. His company went bankrupt at 35, and he had to start over from scratch. Instead of giving up, he studied the financial market for 3 years. In the first years, he hardly earned anything. He was paying to learn. But when the knowledge solidified, he started to see consistent returns. Today, he lives off his investments with complete freedom. And now we arrive at the third principle. Generosity multiplies wealth. It may seem contradictory, but helping others has always returned to me multiplied. In Jewish tradition, there is the concept of tzedakah, which is not just charity, but justice and social responsibility. Every Jew is taught from childhood to set aside 10% of their income to help others. It may seem strange to donate when facing difficulties, but it is precisely this act that opens doors. Once I gave a small amount to a friend who wanted to start a business. I could have kept that money, but I chose to help. A year later, this friend invited me to participate in a much larger project, which earned me 10 times more. This happened more than once. Generosity is not a loss, it is an investment. And we arrive at the fourth principle, creating value, not accumulating money. Wealth is not the bank balance, but the ability to be useful and necessary. When I started helping small businesses by offering consulting, I realized that money came naturally when the value was real. The more value you generate, the more doors open. And finally, the fifth principle, money is freedom, not an objective. Truly wealthy people use money as a tool to buy time, choices, and peace. When I realized this, I stopped chasing specific amounts and started building a system where money served me. And the most curious thing is that when I stopped chasing after money, it started chasing after me. Freedom didn't begin when I earned more, but when I started using what I already had with strategy, awareness, and purpose. It was this mindset that I also saw transform ordinary Brazilians who decided to study, apply themselves, and grow. People with modest jobs, tight schedules, family responsibilities, but who still set aside time to learn, save intelligently, and build something greater than themselves. Financial freedom arrived for them not as a burst, but as a dawn, slow, steady, and inevitable. These 5 principles form the foundation of everything. But there is something even more practical, an ancient technique that Jewish families teach their children from an early age, the rule of thirds. And it changed my life more than anything else. Here's how it works. When the paycheck arrives, before touching any bill, before paying any invoice, you mentally divide it into 3 parts. The first third is for essential expenses, housing, food, transportation, basic bills. The second third is for investments, courses, knowledge, assets, anything that makes your money work. And the third third is divided again, part for leisure and quality of life, part for tzedakah. This balance creates a powerful discipline, a structure that protects against scarcity, but also against greed. A way to honor both the present and the future. I'll give you a practical example. Imagine someone earns 5,000 Rs a month. The first thing they do is set aside 10%, that is, 500 Rs, to help others. This may seem crazy to those who live worried, but it's exactly what changes everything. People who start helping before helping themselves realize that life gives back double, triple, or 10 times more. It's not magic. It's mindset. It's about creating space, opening flow, creating movement. After that, from the remaining 4,500 Rs, set aside 1,000 Rs for investments. Don't leave it in savings that barely keep up with inflation. Invest in knowledge, courses, real estate funds, stocks, passive income. Make that money work while you sleep. And the rest, 3,000 Rs, use for your essential expenses and quality of life. This is not theory. I know a Brazilian teacher who started investing with just 500 Rs per month. 5 years later, the dividends she received totaled almost 2,000 Rs per month, an income that no one could take away from her. Today, her investments cover practically everything she needs. And that's because she had discipline, patience, and the courage to start even with little. The secret is not how much you invest, but how long you invest and the consistency with which you do it. Compound interest is unstoppable. It's like a snowball that grows as you live your life. Jewish wisdom also warns about the danger of debt. Debt is modern slavery. It traps, paralyzes, drains vital energy. Therefore, in the Torah, there is the principle of Bal Tashchit, you shall not waste. This applies to food, objects, and especially money. Do not waste resources. Do not live beyond your means. Do not accumulate what you cannot pay. Every poorly used real, Brazilian currency, is energy you throw away. I met a young Brazilian who transformed his life simply by applying this discipline. He grew up seeing his parents in debt, suffering from interest and collections. When he started working, he promised himself he would never live like that. He tracked every expense, cut excesses, sold what he didn't use, did odd jobs, reinvested everything. In a few years, he went from debt to independence. It wasn't easy money. It was focus. It was intention. It was wisdom applied every day. And here comes another fundamental point of ancient wisdom. Multiple sources of income. Don't rely solely on your salary. A single river dries up. Several rivers feed an ocean. The Jews have always known this. They create side businesses, invest, diversify, study, and undertake. The more sources of income you have, the safer, freer, and more confident you become. Even simple skills can turn into extra income. Fixing computers, teaching something you know, cooking, selling products, providing small services. Everything is a seed. Everything is an opportunity. But there is something even deeper. Value. The more value you create, the more money you attract. Money is a consequence of impact, not isolated effort. I saw this happen when I started working helping small businesses. I didn't think about how much I would earn. I thought about delivering the best possible work. And when I did that, my name started to circulate. My reputation grew. And with it, my income. Value creates doors where there were only walls before. Reputation opens paths that money could never open. The Talmud teaches that a good name is more valuable than gold because reputation is eternal, while money can run out. Honor your word. Be someone trustworthy. Do more than expected of you. These are invisible currencies that yield dividends for a lifetime. Now let's talk about financial freedom. It's not about buying cars or living in mansions. Financial freedom is peace of mind. It's waking up without fear. It's knowing that you have choices. It's living with time, not just bills. I met a Brazilian engineer who was exhausted, with no time for family. For 5 years, he studied investments late at night. He used the little he had to start, but he never stopped. Today, he no longer depends on a boss. He chooses his own hours. He has freedom, and freedom is the true luxury. All of this is beautiful, but understanding is not enough. You need to apply. You need to turn knowledge into action. Therefore, let's move on to the practical steps you can start today. First, set aside your 10% to help others. This is the movement that opens energetic, emotional, and financial doors. Second, divide your money into 3 parts. Third, invest a fixed amount every month. Fourth, study continuously. Fifth, create multiple sources of income. Sixth, protect your reputation. Seventh, avoid debt. Eighth, seek value, not money. Ninth, remember that money is a tool for freedom. And now we arrive at the heart of transformation, changing the financial mindset. Wealth begins in the mind. It doesn't matter how much you earn. What matters is how you think. Someone who earns little but thinks big grows. Someone who earns a lot but thinks small loses everything. The poor mind says, I can't. The prosperous mind says, how can I succeed? The poor mind focuses on problems. The prosperous mind focuses on solutions. The poor mind spends to impress. The prosperous mind invests to evolve. The poor mind sees fear. The prosperous mind sees opportunity. Now that you have heard these principles, you should already feel a change within yourself, even if small. This is the beginning. But to turn this change into real results, you need to decide to act. And this is where everything comes to life. You already know the principles. You already understand the wisdom that has crossed generations. You have already seen real examples of people who have transformed their own history. But nothing changes if you do not change. Nothing happens if you do not take the first step. Wealth does not start in the pocket. It starts within you. It begins with how you see the world, how you respond to opportunities, how you behave in the face of fear and uncertainty. The mind is the ground where everything germinates. And today, in this moment, you have the chance to plant something completely new. Look at your current life. Think about everything you desire. Freedom, security, tranquility, possibilities. Consider what it would be like to live without the fear of overdue bills, without the anxiety of tomorrow, without the feeling of always chasing time. Imagine waking up knowing that your decisions matter more than your job, that your effort works in your favor, that your money grows while you live. This reality is not a privilege of a few. It is the result of daily, small but powerful choices. Now I want to guide you to something even deeper. Today you learned that money is a tool, not a prison. That wealth is built with wisdom, not luck. That generosity creates flow and purpose. That discipline multiplies results. But there is a final principle, perhaps the most important of all: consistency. Nothing blooms if you plant one day and give up the next. Nothing grows if you start with enthusiasm and stop at the first difficulty. Jewish wisdom says that anyone who puts their hand on the plow and looks back is not prepared to reap. Why? Because prosperity requires focus. It requires repetition. It requires commitment. Therefore, I want you to do something now, even today. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. Write down your financial goals clearly and directly. Don't write, I want to be rich. Write, I want to earn X per month. I want to invest Y per month. I want to have freedom by such and such day. I want to help so many people. Clear goals move the brain. Clear goals change behaviors. Clear goals create discipline. And discipline creates results. Place this paper somewhere visible. Read it every morning. Read it before bed. This will keep your mind aligned with the right path. Now let's go back to the steps that truly transform lives. First, practice tzedakah. Setting aside 10% to help someone will not impoverish you. It will free you from a scarcity mindset. It will teach you that there is more than just survival. There is purpose. Second, apply the 3/3 rule. It protects your present and builds your future at the same time. Third, invest monthly, even if it's a small amount. A $50 can turn into $100, which can turn into $500, then $5,000, eventually becoming a solid asset over time. Fourth, always study. Knowledge is the most valuable asset that exists. Fifth, diversify your sources of income. Don't live off just one stream. Create several. Sixth, build your reputation. Your name will open doors that your money never could. Seventh, eliminate debts. Debt is current. Debt binds you. Free yourself from it once and for all. Eighth, create value. The more value you deliver, the more wealth you attract. Ninth, understand that money is freedom, and freedom is wealth. Now I want to tell you something that few people understand. In the end, wealth isn't about what you have. It's about who you become. You can earn millions and still be poor inside, a slave to fears, insecurities, destructive habits. You can have mansions and luxury cars and still be someone fragile, vulnerable to the first crisis. On the other hand, you can start small, earn little, but think big, and gradually build a solid, clean, prosperous, stable life. Wealth isn't measured in figures. It's measured in freedom, purpose, and impact. It's measured by your ability to choose what you live for, not just what you pay. And here is the truth that closes everything. True wealth begins when you decide never to be poor mentally again. True poverty is not lack of money. It is lack of vision. It is lack of purpose. It is lack of courage. It is believing that you were born to survive, not to thrive. It is accepting what you were taught without questioning. It is living by repeating scarcity phrases passed down from generation to generation. It is believing that money is dirty, that being rich is wrong, that prospering is a sin. It is living trapped by beliefs that are not yours. But you are not obliged to carry this. You can break this cycle. You can break this mental curse. You can be the first person in your family to build real wealth, not to boast, but to live with dignity, freedom, and purpose. And when you do this, you will inspire others. You will pave the way for your children, your grandchildren, your friends. You will become the living proof that change is possible. Maybe you don't realize it now, but this very moment is a turning point. There is a version of you in the future, looking back and thanking you for making the decision to change today. There is a version of you living with financial peace, clarity, confidence, and possibilities. That version exists. It is already there, and what separates you from it are the choices you make now. So, listen carefully. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait to earn more. Don't wait to have time. Don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't exist. Wealth is built in chaos, uncertainty, turbulence. Wealth is born when you act despite fear, when you decide that the future is more important than momentary comfort, when you commit to your own evolution, when you stop delaying and start building, when you choose wisdom over habit, when you invest in yourself before investing in anything else. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But no one tells you that the second step is even more important, and the third more important than the second. What changes lives is consistency. What builds freedom is repetition. It's not what you do once. It's what you do every day. And if you do that, if you put these principles into practice, if you invest, if you study, if you give yourself, if you discipline yourself, then, inevitably, you will prosper. It doesn't matter your income. It doesn't matter your city. It doesn't matter your story. Prosperity doesn't ask where you came from. It responds to who you decide to become. Now, stand up. Grab a piece of paper. Write down your goals. Set aside your 10%. Divide your income. Open an investment account. Buy a book. Study today, not tomorrow. Today. Teach someone. Donate something. Cut an unnecessary expense. Take a concrete action. Remember, action without knowledge is blind effort. Knowledge without action is waste. But knowledge with action is power, and power builds freedom. Freedom builds legacy. And let me tell you one last thing, perhaps the most important of all. True wealth is not just what you achieve, but what you leave behind. It's what you teach. It's what you spread. It's what you transform. When you change your mindset, when you transform your relationship with money, you change your life and the lives of everyone who crosses your path. You become light. You become a guide. You become an example. You become inspiration. May you prosper. May you grow. May you find peace on your journey. May money never cause you suffering again. May it become your ally, your partner, your instrument. May you live with freedom, not with fear. May you help others prosper, and may your name, your worth, and your legacy be remembered by those who come after. Because true wealth is this, what remains when money is gone. Now go. Start. Apply. Transform. Your future begins today, and the life you've always wanted is much closer than it seems.